Buonasera a tutti e benvenuti all'Istituto Svedese di Studi Classici a Roma. È il primo incontro del 2025 del nostro ciclo di conferenze in Etruscologia, il Salotto Etrusco. Io sono Hampus Olsson e sono assistente scientifico di archeologia classica e storia antica qui all'Istituto. I seminari di questa serie si terranno sia in italiano che in inglese. E visto che è il seminario di stasera si terrà in inglese, cambio anche io la lingua in inglese ora. Good evening everyone and welcome to the Swedish Institute of Classical Studies in Rome and our lecture series in Etruscology, the Salotto Etrusco. My name is Hampus Olsson and I'm Assistant Director of Archaeology here at the Institute. Tonight we are very delighted to welcome tonight's lecture Professor Alessandro Naso and Dr. Martina Zinni to the Institute and to the lecture series. Professor Naso is Professor of Etruscology and Italic Antiquities at the University of Naples, Federico II, is one of the most influential scholars within the field of Etruscology today. After completing his doctoral studies at the University of Rome, La Sapienza, Professor Naso has been active in various positions at various universities and research institutions across Europe, among which can be mentioned the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung, the Römische Germanische Zentralmuseum in Mainz, the École Normale Supérieure and University of Paris Sorbonne, the Macdonald Institute at the University of Cambridge, and the Ur- und Frühgeschichte at the Leopold Franzens Universität in Innsbruck. Here in Italy, Professor Naso was the director of the CNR ISMA for various years, and he is also a member of various committees for scientific periodicals. Additionally, Professor Naso is the author or curator of various important works within the field of Etruscology, published the last decades, among which can be mentioned the important Etruscology volume in 2 volumes. Professor Naso is currently the project director of the Tuscania Archaeological Project. Our second lecture tonight, Dr. Martina Zinni, also an Etruscologist and also at the University of Naples, Federico II. Dr. Zinni defended her PhD thesis in 2019 at the Sapienza University here in Rome, where she has also worked as a researcher, and within this she is also involved in the archaeological excavations at Pyrgi. Dr. Zinni is also an external collaborator for the CNR ISPC with projects in Sardinia and Tunisia. Additionally, Dr. Zinni has conducted research and activities for the Ministry for Cultural Heritage and Activities, Polo Museale del Lazio, and for the Deutsches Archäologisches Institut in Rome. Furthermore, Dr. Zinni has conducted research at the Montabattone necropolis of Cerveteri, and Dr. Zinni is also involved in the same Tuscania Archaeological Project, where she serves as field director. Tonight, Professor Naso and Dr. Zinni are going to give a lecture with the title Recent Research on the Necropolis of Sasso Pinzuto at Tuscania. And with those words, I would like to welcome first Professor Naso to the microphone. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks, Sampus, for this beautiful presentation. You read accurately our curricula on the net website. I will begin our presentation. Then Martina will prosecute the paper, and then I will reach some conclusion to the end. Tuscania is located in southern Etruria in the hinterland between the Tyrrhenian coast and the Bolsena Lake. The position is strategic one, and the territory is crossed by natural itineraries along the valley of the river Marta. Tuscania is situated at a point where two streams join the river Marta. The streams have cut a neck of land which project into the Marta Valley. The spur consists of two low hills, the Rivellino on the left and Colle San Pietro on the right. Through time, Tuscania and the surrounding area went through different periods of human occupation. Particularly the site of Colle San Pietro yielded residual pottery from the Copper Age, there is absolutely no news, through different phases of the Bronze Age. There is a small amount of evidence dating to the late phase of the early Iron Age, 8th century BC, and finally the town flourished from the early 7th century BC onwards through the Archaic, Classic and Hellenistic period. In Etruscan and Roman times there were several roads. The main one, the Via Claudia, was built in the 3rd century BC, joining already existing Etruscan roads, cutting through the tufa and paving the segments with basalt stones. In the Roman period, Colle San Pietro was occupied by several buildings and thermal baths. From the end of the 6th to the end of the 12th century AD, Tuscania was the seat of a bishop. During the Middle Age, the Abbey of San Giusto, the impressive churches of San Pietro and Santa Maria Maggiore, and the city walls were built. Several phases of renovation have been identified in these monuments. In the 19th century, the Etruscan cemeteries around Tuscania have been widely investigated by Vincenzo Campanari and his stones, and several necropolis and countless chamber tombs were discovered, mostly dating from the classical and Hellenistic periods. In 1837, the Antiquities from Tuscania and other Etruscan cemeteries were exhibited in London at Pall Mall in the first exhibition reserved to Etruscan culture. The event was organized by the Campanari, was very successful, and contributed largely to the knowledge of the Etruscans outside Italy. The Antiquities have been purchased mostly by the British Museum. Some discoveries from the Campanari's excavations were purchased by the Marquis Gian Pietro Campana for his collection, which later was sold. Terracotta plates from Tuscania, already in the Campana collection, are actually preserved in Paris in the Museo del Louvre and in Munich in the Antiken Sammlungen, and they have been published by Arvid Andren, the famous Swedish scholar. In the 80s, several fragments of terracotta roof have been found around the tumuli in the Etruscan cemetery explored south of Tuscania at Ara del Tufo. One fragment of a frieze showing banqueting people matched a fragment with a similar scene preserved in the Museo del Louvre. So Ara del Tufo can be identified with an excavation placed by Campanari. You see here the beautiful exposition in the Museum of Tuscania with all the rest of this oikos from Ara del Tufo. Back to the research at Tuscania. In 19th century, other Etruscan cemeteries have been identified around Tuscania, and some important finds came to light. Worth mentioning are the huge statue of the Nymphro lion from Val Vidone and some relevant chamber tombs as the sepulchre of the Statlane family, now in the National Archaeological Museum in Florence. In this year, Tuscania, stone and clay sarcophages have been found. The last were particularly successful in Hellenistic time as a cheaper version of the stone ones. After the Second World War, field research has been done and relevant structures have been discovered, particularly after the terrible earthquake which in 1971 destroyed Tuscania. For a long time, Tuscania was connected only to the Hellenistic period. The discovery of monuments such as the Tomba a Casa allowed Giovanni Colonna in 1976 to shed a new light on the archaic phase of Tuscania. From 1988, the main archaeological finds are preserved at Tuscania in the National Archaeological Museum. The Sasso Pizzuto necropolis is located along the eastern side of the Marta River, southeast of the urban center of Tuscania, on the western slope of the large plateau of San Lazzaro. It is one of the less investigated cemeteries in the area. The burial ground is flanked by a segment of an Etruscan road cut through the tufa, connecting Tuscania with the hinterland of Cere, which in Roman times became the Via Claudia. Due to its connection with a crucial communication route, the site experienced an uninterrupted occupation in ancient times. The chamber tombs currently visible show two main types. One type exhibits an upper fissure in the middle of the roof. In Italian, they are called tombe a fenditura superiore, while the second one is entirely excavated in the tufa. The tombs entirely excavated in the tufa are the most numerous and display different types of plants. Most of them consist of single rooms, but there are also several tombs composed of two coaxial rooms. Generally, the typology of the two coaxial chambers is widespread in Tuscania and began in the late 7th century BC. There are other hypogea with plants and characteristic of internal elements that suggest dating mostly within the 6th century BC, mainly influenced by models developed in Cere. Limited and challenging to identify excavation were conducted on the site in the 19th century, also by the Campanari, and in the first half of the 20th century. Between 1960 and 1990, the Sovrintendenza dell'Etruria Meridionale undertook targeted excavations, mostly aimed at recovering illicit and clandestine activities, which remained largely unpublished. At the end of the 1960s, Stefania Quirici Gigli focused on the archaeological topography of the site in the broader context of the archaeological map of Tuscania. Giuseppe Scardozzi made a valuable contribution to the documentation of archaeological evidence at Sasso Pinzuto, recording, systematizing, and updating both old and newly acquired data. Within the research carried out in Sasso Pinzuto, a notable discovery occurred during the rescue excavations conducted by Leonida Marchese in April-May 1973. Fragments of molded clay plaques decorated with figures in relief were found, including one depicting a departing warrior moving right, followed by two big horses. In August 1994, the Sovrintendenza, in collaboration with volunteers from the Gruppo Archeologico Romano, GAR, under the guidance of the late Maureen Citti, carried out a cleaning and documentation operation on a known tumulus in the area. The tumulus we will call Tumulus 1. Further investigations were carried out in the 2000 by the Sovrintendenza, leading to the discovery of new tombs, culminating in 2020 with the first intervention by the Center for Ancient Mediterranean and Near Eastern Studies, CAMNES, based in Florence, but already active in the Tuscania area. The excavation is carried out by the University of Naples, Federico II, under our direction. We lead 3 campaigns in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And yes, Martina.
Thank you for this switch. Two areas have been investigated of the necropolis of Sasso Pinzuto, conventionally called the northern and the southern areas. In the southern area, a small plain about 19 meters from the northern area, 4 fossa graves, numbers 126, 27, 8, and 30, and 2 chamber tombs, numbers 125 and 129, were excavated. The fossa correspond to two types. One has a simple profile, number 126 and 128, and the other characterized by a more complex profile of deeper level, number 123 and 130. All tombs were violated, but it was possible to recover small finds of personal equipment that had escaped from the illegal excavations. In tomb 126, a fibula type Lo Schiavo 142 established the chronology within the 7th century before Christ. Tomb 127 yielded a thin fibula with a rhomboidal profile type Lo Schiavo 118-3. In the small fossa 128, about 19 centimeters long and 30 centimeters wide, a small cushion in relief had been cut into the inner surface. Although the burial did not yield any funerary equipment, the dimension suggests that it belonged to an infant, and shows in this sector the presence of tombs reserved for both infants and adults, perhaps members of the same family. In the chamber tomb 125, belonging to the coaxial type, some elements with special regard to impasto lenticular ribbed spindle allow us to establish that at least one female figure was buried. Some complete vases belonging to Bucchero drinking set, Chiatoi cups, calices, cantaroi, oinokoi, and a small jug have been also found. Particularly significant on a stratigraphic level is the discovery of a layer composed by dense, dark clay with plastic consistency found near the entrance door of the tomb, around and under the closing square block. This can be interpreted as a waterproofing arrangement functional to the sealing of the chamber and to avoid water infiltration. The preliminary results of chemical analysis of samples carried out by Concetta Rispoli of Dipartimento di Scienze della Terra of University of Naples revealed that some minerals have been intentionally added to the natural clay to increase its waterproof properties. Chamber tomb 129 has a cruciform plan with a dromos and vestibule featuring a tufa seal, made of two overlapping quadrangular slabs resting on two monoliths, both positioned at the end of the dromos. Some iron objects, such as spear and javelin heads, sauroteres, a knife, a spit, were found along the steps of the dromos, and they can be interpreted as a possible votive offering after the reopening of the tomb. Very probably, on that occasion, the tufa slabs were placed in the vestibule, and some clay vases were moved in front of the entrance door. The ceramics consist of Etruscan Corinthian pots, two amphorae, a figured alabastron, and balsam flasks with geometric decoration, bucchero, calices, cantaroi, cups, oinokoi, and olpai, and impasto vases, jars, and bowls. Two trade amphoras, respectively from Samos and Chios, along with an Athenian floral band cap, date the deposit no later than 530 before Christ. In the chambers, some elements shed light on the people buried in the tomb. In the left side chamber, fragments of iron sandals and a scarab from Naucratis showed that at least one woman was buried here. In the right side chamber, a rare proton of a ram and a small paw, both in Bucchero, belong to rare object to interpret probably as a special commission for the tomb's owners. The northern area corresponds to a little plateau measuring about 1,600 meters squared. The plateau dominated the lower Etruscan road cut out in the tufa and allowed to build several monuments, already visible from the photo by the Royal Air Force in 1944. The plateau includes the list 3 tumuli and an area reserved to burial cults. Unfortunately, the tufa in this area is quite soft and the crepice of the tumuli can't be completely dug in the rock. Etruscan architects were forced to supplement the crepice with squared blocks, originally placed in 2 or 3 upper rows. Despite the unfavorable condition due to the bad quality of the tufa rock, the area has been chosen by the Etruscan elites for its position on the road and its nature of plain. The grey tufa is fragile and the tumuli are in very poor condition of preservation. In the northern area, the research started with Tumulus 1, already investigated in 1994 by GAR, as shown above by Professor Naso. The chamber tomb number 58 contains in Tumulus 1 about 10 meters in diameter, is totally dug into the tufa and shows a transversal atrium and 3 chambers excavated on the back wall. It follows a typology derived from models developed at Cere in the late 7th century before Christ. Limited remains of a painted decoration are preserved on the back wall. Similar tombs are located in several cities in southern Etruria as signs of close connection with Cere culture. The elaborated plan was used also for sanctuaries and houses. The tomb, called Tomba Incitti in honor of the late Mauro Incitti, was already violated, but the excavation made possible the recovery of remarkable finds: Bucchero and Etruscan Corinthian amphore from the Monte Abbatone group, imported Athenian black figure and East Greek vases, and a few metals, including a gold braid clip. According to the architectural typology and the materials found during the excavation in the 1994, it is possible to presume a chronology around the first quarter of the 6th century before Christ. Near the dromos, a small fossa grave belonging to a newborn child was found intact. According to Anna Maria Moretti Sgubbini, it may date from around the 2nd quarter of 6th century before Christ. During the 2022 excavation around the tumulus, some fragments of molded decorated clay slabs have been found, as fragments with riders and with part of a biga, including horse paws and wheel. Worth mentioning are also fragments with painting gouache in the white on red technique. The fragments belong to types already documented at Tuscania. The tumulus 2 contain a chamber tomb with a transversal atrium and 2 chambers excavated on the back wall. A plan developed at Cere in the first half of the 6th century before Christ and later adopted also in the other city in the southern Etruria. The tomb was dug into a piece of rock showing a series of deposits of different colors, so that the interior walls were covered by a clay plaster, probably to have an uniform aspect. The plaster is still partly preserved, although it had already been violated. The tomb held several objects, vases of bucchero and impasto pottery. Particularly interesting are a cooking stand, almost complete, and a brazier, both of red impasto. So, sorry. Among other finds worth mentioning are a bone dice and a bronze fragment belonging to a folding chair at Diffros. The first is particularly fragrant in female sepulture. The second is a typical male attribute which can be connected to the role of magistrate held by the dead. One can remember that in the epigraphical record, local magistrates are documented at Tuscania from the early 3rd century before Christ onward. Among the most important finds from the atrium, there are fragments of the Athenian black figure lip cap by the Little Master with a goat in the inner circle, dating back to the 3rd quarter of the 6th century before Christ. A lot of architectural fragments were discovered from the surface layer, and in particular fragments of modeled clay plaques. The annular trench, preserved only in the eastern portion of the tumulus, was filled by three fill levels. In those fill levels, fragments of pan tiles, cover tiles, and numerous molded clay plaques were recovered too. The high social level of the tomb number 131 is stressed by the presence of the tumulus, unfortunately in very poor condition due to the bad quality of the tufa rock in this area. The tumulus was partly dug out in the tufa and partly built with squared blocks, originally placed in 2 or 3 rows. Despite the presence of the bad material, the area has been chosen for its position and its nature. The little plateau dominated the lower road cut off in the tufa, allowed to build several monuments, including at least 3 tumuli and oikos with a sacred zone. The third tumulus is the smallest of the group. The diameter is about 6 meters, and probably it is the earliest. The excavation revealed only a small portion of the crepice. As you see in the photo, the structure shows 2 blocks of red tufa linking the tumulus to the surrounding area and working like a ramp. The amount of architectural fragments rises more than 115 shards, including molded decorated clay slabs and painting fragments, as we can see in this graph. The main results of the related study have been presented in the recent international conference Delice Fictiles. Thanks to the collaboration with the Museo Archeologico Nazionale di Tuscania, it was possible to work the architectural fragments recovered in 1994 during the excavation of Tumulus I, and some fragments join the fragments we found during our excavation. As regards painted fragments, there are currently 11 fragments with guilloche decoration, winter type A, that belong to raking sima or revetment plaques. Those fragments have different sizes and show a single or double guilloche painted only in white on red technique, group 1 and 2 on the slide, or with small black outlines, group 3. Some examples belong to a raking sima, such as the central fragment of group 3, which also preserves traces of red color on the visible surface. The molded decorated clay slabs from Sasso Pizzuto have been found with high levels of fragmentation. There are fragments that recomposing revetment plaques or raking simas and follow all Acquarossa types, A, B, C, and D. And the Tuscania group, known like Ciclo di Tuscania, scena di partenza 1 e 2. The Acquarossa A, B, C, and D examples have a top fascia with convex strigiles. The sides range from 21 to 23 centimeters for the height and from 65 to 66 for length. Numerous fragments of Tuscania type scena di partenza 1 e 2 have been excavated and recomposed. The Tuscania scena di partenza 1 type, winter 4D, 4C, as is known, is decorated with figure in relief, depicted the departure of warriors moving to left. At the front of the procession are 3 working hoplites followed by a biga with charioteer and mounting warrior. Besides, in this type, 2 variants have been identified. On variant 1, the first figure has a thick mass of long hair, wears a short tunic, and carries a shield, a spear, and a litus over his shoulder. On variant 2, the third figure wears a helmet with a cheekpieces and carries a shield, 2 spears, and a litus over his shoulder. From Sasso Pinzuto, it was possible to identify another variant concerning the last figure from left. On the known revetment plaques, this figure carries always a shield and spear. The plaque from Sasso Pinzuto, this figure wears only a litus over his shoulder. Besides, some fragments could be identified as raking simas. Most of them conserve top fascia with concave or convex strigiles. In the slide, we can see a lower side fragment with a horse paws. So, give the floor, Professor Naso, for the conclusion.
At Sasso Pinzuto, all the new finds belong to the roof of a naiskos. Rest of 2 terracotta roofs have been found also in other 2 necropolis of Tuscania, precisely at Ara del Tufo and Guadocinto. Slabs, antefixes, acroteria, pan and cover tiles belong to these roofs. Such roofs were very heavy. Horian Vikander estimated the weight of an Etruscan archaic roof at least 60 kg per square meters, rich tiles and simas excluded. To support this weight, reaching several tons, one has to presume the existence of a building consisting in wooden frameworks for the roof and squared blocks in opus quadratum for the foundations. At Quattrocinto, the foundation of a structure in squared blocks has been identified, but the blocks seems to be reused. At Sasso Pinzuto, in the last days of the 24 campaign, very close to Tumulus 1, a foundation in squared blocks of red tufa has been identified. The 60 meter 25 centimeter wide, 70 meter 10 centimeters long, and oriented northeast-southwest. We hope to obtain more information from the excavations of this opus quadratum foundation planned for the next campaign this year. Between the trench of the tumulus and the foundation, there is a flat area. In the flat area, we found 7 round cavities, measuring a diameter of circa 30 centimeters and a depth between 20 and 40 centimeters. They were filled with earth containing a few fragments of bucero and of animal bones. One cavity yielded a little bucero olla still in situ. The vase has been excavated in laboratory and previously a CT scan has been done. The olla didn't reveal particular filling. We are actually waiting for the results of the analysis of the earth contained in the olla, probably originally contained liquid or solid votive offerings. In other burial areas in southern Etruria, rests of cultic episodes have been identified. It's time to reach some conclusions. At Sasso Pinzuto, the chronological range of the three tumuli can be noted. The Tumulus 1 is dated to the second quarter of the 6th century BC, and the Tumulus 2 slightly later, around the middle of the 6th century. The third Tumulus is probably the earliest. We will explore it in 2025, and then it will be possible to verify this hypothesis. The oikos was erected around 570-560 BC, when 2 of the 3 tumuli were already built. We can suggest a general view of the regional aspect of this area. The chronological range of the tumuli make probably they belonged to the same family. A building program was accurately planned and realized by a family group of Tuscania, also at Sasso Pinzuto, as other family groups made in other cemeteries of the city. The terracotta slabs on the oikoi show scenes strictly close to the elite's ideology. The oikoi characterize the burial landscape at Tuscania, and they follow models probably established at Vulci. At Sasso Pinzuto, Arel Tufo, and Quattrocinto, the terracottas have been found around the tumuli, heavily and probably intentionally fragmented. The date of the destruction is still unclear, but the good conservation of rest of color on some terracottas made probably a short duration for the roofs of the oikoi. It's possible to presume deliberate destruction of the oikoi when the owner's family perished. This and under work hypothesis will be verified in the next excavation campaigns. Thanks for your attention, and we are pleased to join us in the next campaign.